The Vatican is unbelievably wealthy. We're talking paintings worth billions, golden basilicas, treasures that could fill entire museums. But here's what most people miss. This wasn't a gift from above. This was built, deliberately, strategically, with the same tools every empire has used throughout history. So how does a spiritual movement become a financial superpower? It starts in 313 AD. Emperor Constantine makes Christianity legal. Suddenly, this underground faith becomes the official religion of Rome. And with that stamp of approval, money starts pouring in. Rich families donate land, emperors hand over treasures, Constantine himself funds the first St. Peter's Basilica. The lesson was clear from day one. Wealth and holiness don't have to be enemies. Fast forward to the Middle Ages. The church invents something brilliant, the tithe. Every believer must give 10% of their income to the church. Think about that for a second. You're a farmer barely feeding your family, but you still hand over a tenth of your grain. Why? Because your soul depends on it. Was this charity or was it just taxation with a religious stamp? Those tithes turned the church into Europe's biggest landlord. By the year 1000, the Catholic Church owned nearly a third of all land in Western Europe. Not just churches, actual farmland, vineyards, forests, real assets producing real money. But land wasn't enough. By the 11th century, the church discovered another revenue stream, indulgences. The pitch was simple and devastatingly effective. Pay us and we'll reduce your punishment in the afterlife. Or better yet, pay us to help your dead relatives get out of purgatory faster. Salvation for sale. And business was booming. These indulgences funded everything: new churches, wars, political campaigns. The Crusades? Sure, they were called holy wars, but they were also incredibly profitable. Armies needed financing, so the church imposed new taxes. Cities were conquered, treasures were seized, land was claimed. All in the name of faith, of course. Here's the irony that should make you pause. While priests preached poverty to packed churches, the Vatican was becoming the wealthiest institution in Europe. Sound familiar? By the Renaissance, popes weren't just spiritual leaders anymore. They were princes, politicians, and bankers, and they needed serious cash, not for feeding the poor, but for building monuments, funding armies, and competing with kings. The ultimate symbol? A brand new St. Peter's Basilica. The old one was falling apart, and the Vatican wanted something massive, something that would make everyone else look small. But grandeur costs money, so they doubled down on indulgences. Preachers traveled across Europe selling certificates promising less time in purgatory. One guy, Johann Tetzel, had a sales pitch that still echoes today. As soon as a coin in the coffer rings, the soul from purgatory springs. Terrified families handed over their money, convinced they were buying salvation. But where did that money actually go? Churches, yes, but also banquets, art collections, and lifestyles that would make modern billionaires jealous. Think about the contradiction. Sermons condemning greed, while the Vatican lived richer than royalty. Behind the scenes, something else was happening. Banking. Officially, the church condemned lending money at interest as sinful, but unofficially, the Vatican partnered with Italy's great banking families to move and multiply their wealth. They became a financial hub, managing not just church money, but royal debts. Kings owed money to bankers. Bankers answered to Rome, and the Vatican sat at the center of it all. But every bubble bursts eventually. In 1517, Martin Luther nailed his famous 95 Theses to a church door, calling out indulgences as fraud. He argued that salvation couldn't be bought, that the church had turned faith into a marketplace built on the desperation of the poor. His protest sparked the Reformation. Europe split in two. The very scheme that paid for St. Peter's Basilica, Catholicism's crown jewel, also triggered the revolt that shattered its monopoly. Wealth built glory, but it also built resentment. By 1870, things got worse. The newly unified Italy seized the Papal States, all that land the church had controlled for centuries. The Vatican lost its territories, its income, its empire. Many thought its financial power was finished. They were wrong. In 1929, Mussolini signed the Lateran Treaty. In exchange for the Pope's support, he gave the Vatican sovereignty over Vatican City and massive compensation for lost lands. We're talking 750 million lira in cash and 1 billion in bonds. That's billions in today's money. The church went from near collapse to a sudden windfall, a bailout from a dictator. With that money, they built the Vatican Bank, officially managing funds for religious orders, but in practice operating as a shadowy financial institution with almost no oversight. What happened next gets dark. During the Cold War, Vatican money funded anti-communist movements. In the 1980s came the Banco Ambrosiano scandal. Billions vanished, and Roberto Calvi, God's banker, was found hanging under London's Blackfriars Bridge with bricks in his pockets. Murder, whispers of mafia ties, money laundering, intelligence agencies. An institution preaching poverty had mastered the dark arts of finance better than most corporations. Today, the Vatican's true wealth remains a mystery. The art alone, Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, Raphael's frescoes, represents billions. Land holdings and investments remain vast, but hidden behind layers of institutions. Officially, they claim modest budgets, but anyone who studied history knows appearances are illusions, and illusions are tools of power. So what's the real lesson here? The Vatican's wealth didn't fall from heaven. It was engineered with the same tools every empire uses: taxes, land grabs, treaties, banks. They grew by selling salvation, taxing the faithful, cutting deals with dictators, and manipulating money flows. And here's why this matters to you right now. The Vatican isn't unique. Every system that tells you to trust while quietly enriching itself is playing the same game. Governments printing currency into nothing while telling you it's sound. Corporations preaching values while exploiting workers. Banks promising safety while gambling with your deposits. Same formula. Faith on the surface, money underneath. When you look at those golden Vatican halls, don't just see religion. See the oldest lesson in financial history. Wealth built in shadows always wears the mask of virtue. The real question is this: every time you're told to trust a system, are you asking who actually profits from your belief? Stay enlightened.